A young couple is brutally murdered in Lover's Lane.
I was shocked at the viciousness of the crime.
Their bright futures are destroyed, but there's no suspect in sight.
We interviewed hundreds of people and eliminated hundreds of people over a period of time.
Until an eerie prophecy helps them crack the case.
He said that when you meet the killer, you'll know.
When a millionaire's mansion goes up in flames,
they were taking massive efforts in order to put this fire out.
2 bodies burned beyond recognition. Tests prove it's the millionaire and his wife.
The person responsible wanted to make this look like 2 human beings who just happened to have died in a fire.
But the suspect is somebody no one saw coming. January 3rd, 1995. Investigators from the Monroe County Sheriff's Department and Georgia Bureau of Investigation arrive at the scene of a savage double murder. They find a car perforated with bullet holes. A young man is slumped in the front seat. A young woman lies on the ground some 30 feet away.
The male victim was shot 3 times, and the female victim was shot twice.
The woman's clothes are in disarray. A halo of blood stains the earth around her head.
She was shot in the back of the head.
The bullet-riddled car is registered to the young woman, 19-year-old Michelle Cartagena. Her 22-year-old boyfriend, Grant Hendrickson, is lying in the front seat. The age of the victims and the brutality of the assault rattles even seasoned investigators.
I was shocked at the scene. I was shocked at the viciousness of the crime.
They scour the scene for physical evidence, anything that one day could help convict the killer.
There were no weapons there, but there were numerous shell casings that were found in a couple of different locations.
The search turns up 13 large caliber shells from a rifle, as well as 4 casings from a Ruger 9mm handgun. Authorities also discover a small spot of dried liquid on the young woman's exposed upper thigh.
Most important from an evidentiary standpoint, there was spit on her thigh.
If authorities can identify a suspect, DNA from the saliva will irrefutably tie that suspect to the murders. By any measure, it's a ghastly crime, but investigators aren't sure exactly what they're looking at. Michelle's driver's license is missing. Could this possibly be a botched robbery? A brutal sexual assault, perhaps a revenge killing?
Of course, you think of all kind of scenarios during a criminal investigation and try to run down all theories and all leads.
Among the most important leads is an eyewitness report about the killer's car.
Well, it was a Honda.
It's a Honda CRX.
I have one.
2 people who were at Lake Juliet claim they saw it flee the scene.
They heard what they thought was gunfire, and then a few minutes later, they see the Honda CRX driving away at a high rate of speed.
The GBI forensics lab quickly adds 2 more leads. Casings from the scene indicate the killer used a Colt AR-15 semi-automatic rifle and a Ruger P-89 9mm handgun. Combined with the DNA evidence, it could be enough to put the killer into George's electric chair. But without a viable suspect, the evidence is worthless. Authorities plan their hunt for the killer by the book. They'll generate leads by looking at the victims. Both Grant and Michelle are well-loved only children.
I was blessed. I had a very wonderful, good child. At this time in our life, I was getting to know Grant more as a person than just as my child. And I liked what I was getting to know.
Grant and Michelle are honor students at Mercer and popular with their classmates.
Very, very nice people, just genuinely nice, you know, just never heard a bad word said about them.
6 feet tall, strong and athletic, Michelle is a stunning young woman who attracts a lot of male attention. Investigators wonder, does one of her admirers harbor a deadly obsession?
A young man that had gone to school with Michelle and apparently had a crush on her. Some people believe that he may have been involved in the homicide.
The student, named Bill, owns a Honda CRX and was seen in an angry confrontation with Grant and Michelle on the day of the murder.
Watch him up!
Bill is so enraged, he kicks and pounds on Michelle's car while cursing at the couple.
You're nothing!
Did Bill follow Michelle and Grant to Lake Juliet and gun them down in a murderous rage?
She was pretty and you like to spend time with her, right?
Bill denies any involvement. He says he's on a beer run at the time of the killings. Detectives aren't buying. Bill seems to have both motive and opportunity. It looks like he's the killer.
I mean, all right, I kicked the car, but I didn't hit her.
Investigators get a DNA sample from Bill and compare it to the sample from Michelle's body. There is no match.
What the heck are we gonna do? Start over?
I don't know. It's like going back to basics now, I guess.
It is a colossal setback. Detectives once again face the daunting question: who killed Grant Hendrickson and Michelle Cartagena?
We interviewed hundreds of people and eliminated hundreds of people over a period of time.
Detectives are as far from identifying the killer as on the day of the murder. But then the investigation takes a totally unexpected turn.
All right, now I got that. Lieutenant Colonel Cartagena, yeah, we know about him.
This lead originates with Michelle's father and the controversial School of the Americas at Fort Benning, Georgia.
He was a lieutenant colonel at the School of the Americas, and they thought that maybe it was a killing connected to his position there.
The school is a quasi-secret training facility for Third World military personnel.
There was a lot of resentment from various groups that the U.S. military was training people from South America.
The theory seems to have some merit.
The only thing taken from her was a driver's license. And some people theorized that in order to prove to Colonel Cartagena that they had killed his daughter, they took the driver's license.
Detectives work the international angle. While intriguing, it too dries up for lack of evidence.
That School of America lead? Went nowhere.
Nearly 2 years after Michelle and Grant are murdered, the killer is still running free. With no suspect emerging from Grant and Michelle's inner circle, it now seems possible that a total stranger is responsible for the murders.
And a stranger-to-stranger killing is the hardest homicide to solve because you have to try to make the connection.
The number of potential suspects is infinite, but sheriff's detectives have a tool that can help sift through them.
Okay, here's what I got.
A behavioral profile of the killer.
Lives alone, no brothers or sisters, that kind of thing.
When you're looking at a large pool of suspects or a crime in which there's no apparent relationship between the victim and the perpetrator, it gives you some idea of direction.
GBI Special Agent Ralph Stone is a profiler. He creates a psychological portrait of the killer.
Now, he's a predator. He's a loner. He spends a lot of time by himself.
According to Stone, the killer is a white male in his early 20s, probably an avid hunter who loves firearms. Stone also believes the suspect will live near the murder scene.
He's been to that area before and probably lives within reasonable driving distance of Lake Juliet.
Stone's profile leads to a strange meeting with a death row inmate who offers prophetic advice for finding the killer.
When you meet the killer, you'll know.
Shortly after midnight, on January 3rd, 1995, 19-year-old Michelle Cartagena and her boyfriend, 22-year-old Grant Hendrickson, are gunned down at a Georgia Lover's Lane.
Go!
It was the most heinous type crime that I have ever been involved in my 26 years of law enforcement.
After nearly 2 years of effort, the investigation is stalled. There are no suspects.
Special agents and investigators involved in this case had ruled out the logical suspects being family members, friends, and acquaintances.
The original team of detectives is cut back. Those assigned to the case now believe the killer is a total stranger, and they are as determined as ever to hunt him down.
We never gave up. We were down to having 2 people permanently assigned to it, Investigator Evans and Agent Upton.
Upton is working several other cases, and one takes him to Georgia's largest prison. He plans to interview a death row inmate named Timothy Don Carr. Upton doesn't realize he's on the edge of a major breakthrough in the case.
As I was talking to the individual, I realized that he fits psychological profile of the killer.
Timothy Don Carr isn't a suspect. He's already on death row when Michelle and Grant are shot. Upton talks to Carr for 3 hours. When he asks Carr for help,
how can I find this guy?
He gets a page straight from Silence of the Lambs.
When you meet the killer, you'll know.
The inmate makes a stunning prediction.
And I said, how? And he said, well, when you meet the killer
will say, you're trying to frame me.
And I said, why?
If you came to me 2 years after the fact, I would accuse you of trying to frame me.
Maybe it's a prophecy, but it can't be put to the test until a suspect is found. Timothy Don Carr has a prediction about that, too.
Find the guns and you'll solve the murder.
And I said, well, how can I find the guns? What would you do with the guns?
The AR-15 will be in the pawn shop.
Authorities had checked every pawn shop in Macon several months after the murders. Upton revisits Arvin's, one of the larger ones in town. Now, his meticulous search of the receipt book uncovers the key to the entire case.
I went through the book and recorded by hand everyone that had purchased or pawned an AR-15 in the last 10 years.
Agent Upton comes up with the list of 108 names. Talking to every one of them will take months.
The psychological profile said that the killer would live close to the lake. So I took the 108 people and prioritized them based upon who lived closest to the lake.
The first 4 people on the list each provide a DNA sample when requested. All are eliminated as suspects.
The 5th person on my list of 108 people was an individual by the name of Andrew Allen Cook.
Upton calls Cook. What should have been another routine call is anything but.
Andy, have you bought or sold any weapons?
Yeah, I bought an AR-15 back in the spring of '94, and then I pawned it a couple months later.
Andy, I said, you're lying to me. I said, I've got the records in front of me. I know that you purchased an AR-15 in April of '94, and I know that you pawned it in May of '95.
Agent Upton asks Cook to come to the police station and provide a sample of DNA for comparison with the crime scene sample.
No, sorry, Andy, you've got to come on in.
His response to me was,
"Are you trying to frame me?"
It's an electrifying moment. Cook says exactly what Carr predicted the killer would say.
The killer will say, you're trying to frame me.
Is Upton talking to the person who gunned down Grant and Michelle? That's how it's starting to look. But then, Cook throws Upton a curve.
My dad's in the FBI.
He indicated that his father was an FBI, and I'd verified that his father was, in fact, an FBI agent.
Is Andrew Cook the killer? Everything isn't quite adding up. So when Cook asks to speak with his father before providing a DNA sample, Upton agrees.
While there was suspicion in the back of my mind, I wasn't ready yet to accuse the son of an FBI agent of possibly being involved in a double homicide.
Cook still hasn't called back. Upton follows up a week later. He arrives at Cook's home, an isolated trailer. Andrew Cook is nowhere to be found.
Andy had apparently moved out over the weekend.
Andrew Cook is now a fugitive. But is he a killer? Upton contacts GBI profiler Ralph Stone to compare notes on the suspect.
He's a loner, lives in a mobile home, he's a loner, loves hunting, fishing, camping.
In his early 20s.
When I got to the trailer, he had all the windows blocked out.
And of all the individuals I talked to, he actually lived closest to the lake.
Agent Stone's profile fits Andrew Cook like a second skin. The FBI agent's son may well be the killer detectives have been seeking for nearly 2 years, but now he's on the run. In the unpredictable world of a murder case, a small mistake can have a big impact, and Andrew Cook makes a small mistake. At the trailer, Upton spots the carcass of a wild turkey. Hunting season is closed, so Upton calls the local game warden.
Yeah, Fred, listen, I need for you to issue a hunting out-of-season warrant for Andrew Allen Cook.
It sounds like an unlikely ploy, but it may be his last chance to catch the fugitive.
And my intent was to get Andy into custody on a game violation so I could at least talk to him and then also run down the AR-15.
The noose begins to tighten. Agent Upton learns that at the time of the murders, Cook owns a Ruger P89 9mm handgun in addition to the AR-15. He also has a car, a Honda CRX.
I had an AR-15, a Ruger P89, a Honda CRX, and I felt very strongly that he was a very, very strong suspect in this double homicide.
The time has come for Randy Upton to make a call he's been dreading. A call to Andrew's father, FBI agent John Cook.
John, I said, I hope and pray to God that I'm wrong. And I said, but...
Your son, I believe, was involved in the Lake Juliet homicide murders.
And I said, since I talked to him last week, he appears to be running.
Okay, I'll do what I can.
Though John Cook is understandably distraught, he agrees to look for his son.
Freeze!
But the next day, Upton gets a call. Andrew Cook is in custody on the hunting charge. Randy Upton walks into the Jones County Jail, where Andrew Cook is being held. Finally, he's face to face with his prime suspect.
He immediately said, you guys haven't had anything for 2 years. And he goes, I owned an AR-15, I owned a Ruger P89, I owned a Honda CRX, and you guys are going to frame me.
Once again, Cook echoes the prediction made by death row inmate Timothy Don Carr. Any doubts about Andrew Cook's guilt will be argued at his trial. The key testimony will come from a most unlikely source. Nearly 2 years after the shocking murder of Michelle Cartagena and Grant Hendrickson, authorities arrest a young man named Andrew Allen Cook. In a strange twist, Cook's father turns out to be an FBI agent. When the case goes to trial,
with an abandoned and malignant heart, execute those two children.
the prosecutors lay out a horrifying story to explain what really happened to Grant and Michelle. The night of the murder, Andrew Cook is out hunting. Not for game this time, but for people. When he sees Michelle and Grant, they become his targets. He pulls up to the driver's side of Michelle's car, the side where Grant is sitting.
And he's 30-some-odd feet from the car, from the driver's side of the car, where the biggest threat is to him. And who's the biggest threat? It's the male.
Cook steps out and opens fire with his AR-15 semi-automatic rifle. Grant is killed. Michelle is critically injured.
I never felt like he intended to kill this girl at that point. He wanted her for himself.
Now, Cook pulls Michelle from the car. She's bleeding profusely from a massive head wound. Cook drags her some 30 feet and lays her out on the ground.
And you can see at the crime scene, two indentations, linear indentations, that strongly suggest toe marks where he probably knelt between her legs.
That's probably when Andrew Cook leaves the telltale saliva sample.
And I think at that point he realized that she is dead, and he's covered in blood.
It's taken Andrew Cook less than 10 minutes to destroy two promising young lives, as well as his own. It's damning evidence, but there's more to come.
I think we know he did it.
The final prosecution witness is none other than Andrew Cook's father, FBI agent John Cook.
When I raised my hand and said, I do solemnly swear that I will defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, I never realized that the biggest enemy would be so domestic that he would be bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh.
The jury takes just 2 hours to find Andrew Cook guilty of double homicide. It takes them even less time to decide he should be executed for the crime, a crime he committed, he would say, just to see how it felt to kill. Coming up, the bodies of a millionaire and his wife are found incinerated in the ruins of their burned-out mansion. But did they die in the fire?
I knew it was something more than just a simple fire in the house.
Digging through tons of frozen ash, detectives find clues that will lead them to the most unusual suspect they've ever encountered. January 23, 1996. On a cold winter night in Barrington Hills, Illinois, all hell is breaking loose. Flames are sweeping through the lavish home owned by 78-year-old multimillionaire Marvin Lichtman and his 75-year-old wife, Kay.
All the neighbors were watching in horror as this beautiful home, this mansion, was being burned to the ground.
By the time firefighters arrive, the 22-room mansion is completely engulfed.
So when we saw that the whole house was on fire, it didn't make any sense. I just couldn't understand how could this entire house go up this quickly and just every room be on fire like that. It was stunning. It really was.
They were taking massive efforts in order to put this fire out. There were approximately 19 different fire departments that responded.
Firefighters fear the Lichtmans are trapped inside, but they have no way of knowing for sure.
It was a little unnerving just not knowing where they were.
Then, a horrific discovery. A charred body, one hand still clutching the day's mail.
Approximately 15 feet from the front door was a body. Now, this body was so badly burned at that point that it was impossible to be able to recognize who it was just on sight.
The only thing they would tell us is that they had a body there, but they wouldn't let on if it was a man or a woman or who it was.
The body is taken to a local hospital. When the Lichtmans' distressed family members arrive, they are kept isolated in a separate room.
That's when we knew it was something more than that, than just a simple fire in the house.
The charred body is identified as Marvin Lichtman.
Marvin Lichtman had been shot once in the temple.
Could his death be a suicide? A closer look quickly reveals more gunshots.
Got one up here in the face.
He had been shot once in the face, right near his nose. He had been shot in the front portion of his chest, and he had been shot in the back as well.
Detectives now know it's not suicide, it's murder. But where is Marvin's wife, Kay? Is she also dead? Or kidnapped? Early the next morning, investigators look for answers at the frozen crime scene.
What we ended up with after the fire was finally struck was about 11,000 square feet of frozen ash.
They finally unearth grim evidence, a fragment of human skull.
It was a very small portion. It also included a portion of jawbone.
A single tooth remains in the jaw, but it's enough to confirm Kay Lichtman is dead.
She had literally been incinerated. There was no body, per se, that we found of Kay.
But it's not the fire that killed her. She'd been murdered, like her husband.
Finding the bullet in the left temple of Kay, that was a .22 caliber bullet, we now were understanding that, okay, clearly this is a homicide.
It's a horrific tragedy. In less than 24 hours, a residential fire is revealed to be a smokescreen for a gruesome double murder.
What we're calling it at this particular time is a homicide arson investigation.
You can see the flow pattern of the accelerant.
Stains on the flooring prove the fire is no accident.
You could physically see the pour pattern from the accelerant leading from the back of the house all the way out, almost to the garage area and out the house.
That mansion was burned to the ground because the person responsible wanted to make this look like two human beings who just happened to have died in a fire.
But who would unleash such horrors and why? To zero in on a suspect, detectives start at the heart of the case, the Lichtmans themselves.
Essentially, what you're trying to do is just try to understand their lives, how they lived, what their movements were. And through that, hopefully, you can start uncovering who might be responsible for this.
Marvin and Kay Lichtman are a devoted couple, married 56 years at the time of their deaths.
Kay's wishing well, and I wish her well. She's got everything she's ever wanted.
They had such a sweet relationship. I mean, they truly did adore each other. I mean, Kitty was actually, the night of the murder, she was actually at home preparing dinner for him because he was coming back from Florida. So, I mean, she still took the time to, you know, do things for him like that.
They're also very wealthy, with holdings worth around $14 million.
When you're talking about wealth like the Lichtmans had, I mean, everybody kind of becomes a suspect until you eliminate them.
A good chunk of their wealth was right in their home.
Here's a picture of our new home in Barrington Hills.
Their home was just beautiful. It was a home that was filled with all the things that they loved. They loved statues and statuary. They loved Fabergé eggs. They had very, very elaborate chess tables.
Literally every room was just about packed with different things that they had collected from around the world.
Running out of space here pretty soon. We're going to have to get a larger home.
The inventory in that house.
In addition to the artwork, Kay, or Kitty as many call her, owns jewelry worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. She's also known to keep huge quantities of cash in the house.
I think she had about $50,000 worth of cash under the rug in her office.
Naturally, one of the motives would have been possible robbery, burglary.
While robbery seems like a probable motive, it isn't the only scenario investigators consider. They're also working a theory based on the type of bullets used in the killing. The .22 caliber shells read like the signature of a mob hit.
We find that a .22 caliber gun is generally used in a lot of these mob hits. Well, this is the same type of caliber gun that we had in the deaths of Marvin and Kitty.
But why would the mob cross paths with this elderly couple? Investigators learned that before his retirement, Lichtman sold plumbing supplies to construction projects in Chicago.
Could be hooked up with the mob.
They must maybe look at all of his associates.
Historically, there have been mob links to construction.
You certainly want to look into that a little bit. Any business dealings that might have gone sour, you know, during the time that he owned the plumbing supply business.
It wasn't clear. Was the Chicago outfit behind the murder? And did it have nothing to do with artwork?
Detectives soon find the perfect suspect, a man they hope could link the outfit and the Lichtmans.
There was a gentleman that owned a pizza place that they frequented and befriended that we know later definitely had syndicate connections.
Can you tell me where you were the night of the murder?
Investigators question the owner of the pizza place, optimistic they're onto something. But this suspect not only has an ironclad alibi, he's genuinely distraught.
He was upset, like any other friend that loses a friend, you know. He was, you know, saddened by it, for sure.
As the mob theory drops in priority, a salvage company recovers what survives of the Lichtman art collection. When authorities review the findings, there is no question the art didn't burn. It was stolen.
Investigators speculated that upwards of $1 million worth of artwork may have been removed from the home.
Detectives are back to one of their initial theories. Were the Lichtmans killed during a robbery of their home? If they were, how did the killer haul off millions of dollars worth of art without being noticed?
The subject you added cleared.
They canvass the residents of Barrington Hills, hoping one of them has seen something that points to a suspect. They soon turn up an intriguing clue, a rental van.
We know that throughout the afternoon that budget rental van was seen outside, parked outside the house. It was seen by 4 different people.
Detectives also talked to a local boy who brought the Lichtmans mail to them every day at 3. They learned January 23rd was different.
He rings the doorbell, and he knocks on the door. Kay doesn't come to the door.
Mrs. Lichtman!
That silence tells a story. Detectives now believe Kay was dead by 3 p.m. The murder timeline is filling in, but the suspect remains stubbornly elusive. Still in search of a lead that will unlock the case, investigators question the Lichtmans' housekeeper.
Were you working the day of the murder, January 23rd?
On the day of the murders, she was the last person to see Kay Lichtman alive. Investigators in Barrington Hills, Illinois, are dealing with one of the worst crimes they've ever faced, a cold-blooded double homicide.
I cannot remember before this when there had been a murder in the Barrington Hills area, and there certainly hasn't been one after.
Someone shot and killed multimillionaires Marvin and Kay Lichtman, robbed them of millions of dollars in cash, art, and jewelry, then torched their 22-room mansion to cover it up. As investigators dig deeper into the case, they turn to the Lichtmans' housekeeper, hoping for answers.
It was a normal day. I got there at my normal time in the morning.
She actually worked at the house from about 8 o'clock that morning till about 11:30 that morning.
According to the housekeeper, the day was routine. There were a couple of deliveries. And a glass installer named Peter Homerson visited the house.
And in fact, this worker, he was at the Lichtmans' home from about 9 until 11 a.m. that morning.
The housekeeper says when she left a half an hour after the glass installer, Kay Lichtman was alone in the house, still alive and well. Homerson, the glass installer, confirms the housekeeper's story. Kay was fine when he left. Then, to the detective's surprise, he volunteers an alibi.
She'll tell you we had a beautiful lunch together.
He says that after leaving the Lichtmans' house, he spent the afternoon at home with his wife, an alibi she confirms.
But it was early afternoon. You know, we always have lunch together.
What she said was that her husband, Peter Homerson, came home at noon that day on January 23rd, that they had lunch together. And she said she was with him for several hours.
Basically, her story kind of substantiates what he says.
But Homerson's interview is an immediate red flag. He's acting more like a suspect than a witness.
I got home about noon, and then we were together pretty much the whole day.
If he knew nothing about what had happened to Kay and Marvin, how did he know that that afternoon was going to be a critical period of time for which he had to present himself with an alibi?
As investigators continue questioning him, his answers become more and more bizarre.
Earlier you said that you got there at 10 o'clock?
No, what I meant was that I had to do some stops, and I started out the day at about 10 o'clock.
He would give information to the police on different days that was different from what he had told the police the day before. Slowly, he started becoming a suspect in the case.
Then, a stunning discovery. Investigators find out that the budget van parked in front of the Lichtmans' house was rented to none other than Peter Homerson, making his alibi a sham.
He literally rented it at about noon and returned it at about 5:19 p.m. that same day.
But why? Homerson already has a big van he uses for hauling glass.
The police asked him at one point, why were you renting this smaller van if, in fact, you already had a fully operational extended van? And over a couple of days, he gave 3 different answers.
Well, I had to move some furniture. I needed to move some tools. I had to move some garbage.
And not one of those 3 explanations, whichever one you accept, would explain why he needed to rent a van versus using the van that he already had.
Homerson seems to have guilty written all over him. Authorities get a warrant and search his home. Inside, they find the clip for a .22 caliber handgun, the same caliber as the murder weapon.
He denied ever shooting or owning a .22 caliber handgun. And in fact, we developed evidence that he target practiced with a .22 and that within 12 months earlier, he had purchased 2 .22 caliber handguns.
Detectives know Homerson is lying about the gun, the alibi, and the rental van. But that's not enough to pin a murder charge on him. While they look for more evidence, Homerson disappears.
Approximately 3 to 3.5 days after this double homicide occurred to Marvin Kay, we developed evidence that, in fact, Peter Homerson had now fled the area.
4 frustrating weeks drag by. Then, investigators get a surprising call.
Hello, Mrs. Homerson. How are you doing?
Now, Homerson's wife wants to talk. She's a changed woman. She tells detectives the alibi she provided for her husband is a total lie.
My husband left the house at 9 in the morning, and I didn't see him the rest of the day.
She said that she never saw Homerson from 9 o'clock in the morning until when he came home in mid-evening in order to have dinner.
But she knows where he is now. She tells investigators she drove her husband of 17 years to Laredo, Texas, and dropped him off at the Mexican border.
Her husband then turned to her, and he kissed her on the cheek and said, quote, "Goodbye forever," unquote. And he turned his back on her, and she watched the receding figure of her husband walk into Mexico.
Within hours of the confession, authorities issue warrants for the arrest of Peter Homerson on charges of murder. But more than a year passes with no new leads. Then, an FBI informant calls with a startling tip.
Some of the artwork taken from the Lichtman residence was on the black market in the Chicago area.
They had information from an informant that a guy was trying to sell him this jade vase and the jade Buddha.
The investigation springs back to life, fueled by this unexpected break.
And it certainly piqued our interest. Was Peter Homerson back into the area? Was he selling this artwork? Your mind races.
Under the guise of buying the art objects, investigators set up a sting at a local hotel.
And of course, the attempt was twofold. One is to recover some of the stolen artwork, but more importantly, would that lead us to Peter Homerson, the killer of the Lichtmans?
It's a genuine Hogarth?
Genuine. It's got a signature and a date.
When two sellers show up, an agent posing as a collector agrees to buy the stolen art.
The offer was for $20,000, and that was the deal that was struck.
The instant the sellers accept the cash, police and FBI agents burst in.
Great. FBI!
The sting went down pretty much as planned.
Both suspects are arrested on the spot. A third is rounded up soon after. But Peter Homerson doesn't turn up. For detectives, the investigation suddenly does a 180. Maybe Peter Homerson is not the killer after all.
Were these other individuals involved in the murder of the Lichtmans, or were they just involved in the sale of the stolen artwork?
The new lead quickly goes south. Investigators discover the suspects peddling the stolen art are linked to the salvage operation, not to Peter Homerson.
Some artwork was stolen from the scene of the fire. The artwork was actually taken after the fire occurred as part of during the salvage operation of the house.
The objects they're trying to sell were even scorched by the flames. It's a serious crime, but it's not murder. The three men are convicted on theft charges. Frustrated, investigators resume their search for the man they believe is the real killer, Peter Homerson.
During the course of the investigation, we had hundreds of sightings of what individuals thought was Peter Homerson, the fugitive. And on every one of these sightings, we followed that up with investigation. And none of them were positive. So after 9 years of sightings, it was somewhat frustrating.
Investigators would wait a very long time for the next break, 7 years. But in the spring of 2005, two couples vacationing separately in Ixtapa, Mexico, called the FBI with electrifying news. They saw Peter Homerson.
They go into a restaurant. The owner was friendly, introduced himself as Peter Herman, introduced his wife.
Investigators waste no time.
We sent out leads to law enforcement officials in that country to follow up on the sighting, to see if, in fact, this is Peter Homerson.
Lo and behold, they go to the restaurant one day, and Peter Homerson, yep.
He was actually working, a worker owner of this cantina with his then new Mexican wife.
And they took him into custody and fingerprinted him and positively identified him as Peter Homerson.
They considered Peter to be an illegal alien in their country. And as a result of that, they said, by all means, take him.
Investigators can now reconstruct the crime that happened on January 23rd, 1996.
At 8:30 in the morning, he stopped at a budget rental facility, and he rented a van. But he left the van there.
Homerson drives to the Lichtman's house in his own van, an extended-length glass panel truck.
Homerson was at the Lichtmans from 9 o'clock till 11 o'clock that morning.
After leaving the Lichtmans' home, Homerson buys 24 heavy-duty cardboard storage boxes. Homerson is planning to steal as much of the Lichtmans' artwork as he can physically haul away. Homerson then goes to budget. moves the boxes from his own van into the rental van and drives that vehicle back to the Lichtman's house, where several people see it parked outside.
We think that when he returned with the budget-riddled van, that he killed Kitty.
Then he helps himself to the Lichtman's treasures. It's believed Homerson is there when the mailboy rings the doorbell at 3 p.m.
And Kay never came to the door.
Later that day, Marvin Lichtman picks up the mail. He steps into the front hall. Peter Homerson is waiting and kills him on the spot.
When we found the body, he still had the mail in his hand. We know that he was ambushed at that very point.
Homerson returns the rented van and transfers the boxes into his own truck.
It took him 18 minutes to unload the rental van into the glass panel truck. 18 minutes, that's a long time to unload. It indicates to us is that he was able to get away with quite a bit of artwork.
Homerson then executes the final stage of his plan.
Homerson is at a Shell gasoline station at 7:08 p.m. We know this because he paid for a small amount of gasoline with a credit card.
He drives to the Lichtman's mansion for the third and final time that day. He pours gasoline in several rooms, ignites the fuel, and leaves. When Homerson drives off, he believes he's getting away with murder.
According to his wife, he had no change in emotion, nothing out of the norm, ate a good dinner, watched TV. That's after you've killed two people and set their house on fire.
An Illinois jury finds Peter Homerson guilty of the murders of Kay and Marvin Lichtman. He is sentenced to life in prison.
And in Illinois, life means life. He will have to serve the entire time until he passes away. And only when he passes is when his sentence will cease.
Touched. There's a woman in Hebron who still sets a place at the table for her son. His name is... He raised a hand. Don't. Samar, she finished. 12. A good runner. You wrote unconfirmed. I watched him bleed in the dust. The bar felt suddenly small. He found the bartender's eyes, asked for the bill without speaking. People think lying is a loud act, Yael said. But mostly it's a reduction. You keep subtracting until the numbers look brave. He stood. The world tilted. Not from the whiskey, but from the name she had given the air. He left money he didn't count. When he turned for the door, she added, "You can still change the sum, Eli. Unless the numbers own you now." He didn't answer. He wasn't sure he could. That night, he didn't open the freezer, but he could hear it hum. The photographs waited among ice and peas, preserved evidence of a past that refused to thaw. In the morning, he shaved with brisk strokes, nicking himself twice along the jaw, a dotted line red enough to sign a treaty with. He covered it with his collar and went to work. A meeting had been called. Internal oversight. Outwardly bland, inwardly predatory. The Carmel Inquiry. A name that sounded like a cafe but behaved like a trap door. A panel of 3, 1 legal, 1 security, 1 ethics professor with eyes that kept trying to warm to something that kept refusing. They asked targeted questions about retention policies, version histories, metadata trails. Eli answered each without tremor, the way you might recall a loved one's birthday while lying about where you spent the night. He knew the paths to walk and the branches to avoid. He knew which words to substitute when the truth pricked too clearly. He kept his gaze fixed, palms still, a breathing statue. At the end, the professor closed her notebook. We appreciate your diligence, Captain Navan. One more thing. When procedures and outcomes conflict, which do you prioritize? Procedures, he said. Outcomes are subjective. Even when the outcome is a body? A long pause. He heard himself breathe. Procedures, he repeated, softer. She wrote nothing down. He left the room a smaller size. Outside the conference suite, Noam, the new analyst he'd been assigned, waited with a folder hugged to his chest. He was pale in a way that made him look lit from the inside. Sir, a quick question? Eli nodded. I found a mismatch in the Hebron archive, Noam said, tone respectful but heartbeat stupid loud. An audio log is missing. The timestamp doesn't align with other telemetry. It could be a redundancy issue, but I'll handle it, Eli said. It's just that the family is requesting access through their counsel. If we fix it now, we can, I said, I'll handle it. He didn't raise his voice, but he felt the word handle leave his mouth like a gloved hand. Noam swallowed. Yes, sir. That evening, Eli stayed late. The building emptied like a lung. In the archive room, the servers hummed with a devotion he almost envied. He entered an admin portal that had never been officially granted to him, but had never been officially denied. Most power lived in that gray. He located the log. For a moment, he let his fingers hover above the keyboard, 10 pale birds refusing to land. If you delete it, it's mercy. If you keep it, it's a trial. If you change it, it's a habit. He changed it. Not a lot. Enough to blur the hour. He resynced the database so the checksum settled like dust. When he finished, he felt the precise numbness of a surgeon who knows the tumor is back, but still stitches the wound to keep the patient calm. On his way out, he ran into Yael in the lobby. She wore civilian clothes now, but her eyes had stayed drafted. Working late? Work doesn't end, he said. That's your problem, she replied. You think the machine is a god because it never sleeps. He wanted to be clever, to parry. He found nothing. She stepped closer. You don't have to confess to them. But one day you'll have to confess to what your silence made of you. She reached into her bag and pulled a small object wrapped in tissue. A souvenir. He took it, wary. She walked away before he could open it. Outside, under a streetlight that made the city look like a crime scene, he unwrapped the tissue. A kite string, red and white, a child's wrist loop tied at one end. He closed his hand around it until the nylon cut crescents into his skin. He slept with the string under his pillow that night, like a saint with a relic, or a guilty man with a loaded thought. The next day brought a request from the minister's office, a personal favor. There was a rambling clip, an explosive second act of ambiguity, a demand to contextualize with vigor. Eli delivered. He trimmed footage by seconds the way a thief trims a story by sentences. The final cut looked like bravery. Networks ran it. Applause followed. His name trended in ways designed to flatter the part of him that still worked. You are a craftsman. Your medium is belief. Be precise. But belief, once shaped, can harden around you. He noticed small things, his coffee going cold because he couldn't taste it, the elevator ding making him flinch, the way reflections caught him at angles that made him look like a man standing where another man should be. He wrote speeches about integrity and briefed officers on restraint. He visited a school to talk about civic duty. A boy asked, "Is lying ever patriotic?" The teacher shushed him. Eli said, "In emergencies, clarity saves lives." The boy nodded, not understanding, and that was the point. The letter came next. No envelope, just paper folded into itself, slipped under his apartment door at 3 a.m. He didn't hear the steps, only felt the wrongness, woke to his own name trying on fear. The letter said, "We remember him. Why don't you?" 3 addresses printed beneath. One was the unit's old post. One was his parents' house. The third was the cemetery where his father had just been buried. He sat on the floor until dawn, the city's silence pressing its cheek to his. Then he showered, shaved, dressed, and went to work because the machine never sleeps, and neither does guilt. When he reached his desk, Noam was waiting again, eyes a little brighter, or maybe that was just panic. "Sir, the oversight team requested the Hebron audit." They want the raw logs, not the compiled report. They want the original audio. Eli's mouth tasted like copper. "Send them what we have." "But send them what we have." He held Noam's gaze until Noam looked away. That was its own kind of deletion. By afternoon, the building vibrated with invisible footsteps. The inquiry had widened. Phrases like persistent inconsistency grew legs. He was asked to prepare a high-level narrative of procedural compliance, words that stacked like scaffolding around a building already on fire. He wrote with a speed that scared him. The sentences were ruthless in their restraint, persuasive in their emptiness. He built a wall you could see through, but not cross. He signed it. He sent it upstream. At 6, the chief called him into 5 again. No lights this time, only voices. "We're closing ranks, Navan." Early retirement for a few. Lateral transfers. "We don't need martyrs. We need quiet." "I understand." He did. Better than anyone. Walking home, he cut through a narrow street that smelled of onions and motor oil. The sun had dropped face first into the sea, leaving the sky a bruised color. Someone followed him. Soft footfalls. Not a threat. A reminder. He turned once. The street was empty, except for shadows doing their normal work. He turned again. A door closed politely. At home, he opened the freezer and took out the photographs. They stuck to each other with a painful softness. He laid them on the table, smoothed the corners flat, and named them out loud, like you might name your failures to keep them from multiplying. Kite. Courtyard. Metal. Date. He could not say Samar. Not yet. Saying the name would fix it to the air. The air would carry it back to him, and then he would be breathing proof. He made tea he didn't drink. He sat still. He listened to the building's ordinary noises, pipes, neighbors, the elevator, until one sound remained. The sound of something inside him writing an answer to a question he was not ready to read. This is maintenance, he thought, not penance. Keep the structure sound, and the ghosts won't blow it down. He slept badly and dreamed worse. A room without doors, a lectern without words, a sky without wind. In the dream, the kite string tightened until it drew blood. He woke with his palms pressed into the sheets, crescents where the nylon had cut the night before. The next morning, he returned to the archive room before sunrise. No lights, only the blue immorality of machines. He stood where the stacks met, like aisles in a cathedral, and whispered, "Samar." The name didn't echo. It settled. He pulled up the log again. He watched his own changes line up like boot prints. He hovered over delete and felt a terrible calm. Deleting wouldn't be erasure. It would be completion. The perfect circle where the first lie had wanted to end. He didn't delete. He printed 3 pages. He folded them. He slid them into an envelope. He wrote an address he remembered from a line he had tried not to. He sealed the flap. His hands shook for the first time in years. He left the building with the envelope in his jacket. Through the glass, he saw Yael turn the corner toward the entrance. She didn't see him. He watched her disappear into the machine. On the street, the morning air bit his face. He looked down at the envelope and imagined the chain reaction. Doorbell, footsteps, paper, eyes. With it, a life detonating. Or mending. He couldn't tell which. He walked to a mailbox and stood there a long time, listening for orders that would not come. If you send it, you become someone else. If you keep it, you stay reliable. He slid the envelope in. The sound it made, settling into the dark, was small and absolute, like a verdict you can't appeal. He stood up, lighter and terrified, and began the long walk to work, where the machine waited, hungry and patient, like always. The letter took 3 days to reach Hebron. He knew because he counted them, not hours, not minutes, but heartbeats. Every beat was a ticking question. Did she open it? Did she understand? By the 4th morning, the envelope had become a phantom weight in his chest. He woke before dawn, certain he'd hear a knock, an arrest, a curse. None came. Instead, silence. Perfect, surgical silence. That's when fear changed shape. It wasn't panic anymore. It was anticipation. Waiting for punishment that refused to arrive. At headquarters, the machine continued to hum. Emails, memos, press queries, reports, all obedient as ever. No mention of his leak. No sign that anyone had seen the evidence he'd sent. He should have felt relief. He felt hunted. He walked the corridors like a man whose name had already been whispered in a higher room. Every nod looked rehearsed. Every compliment sounded like camouflage. By noon, he'd convinced himself the calm was a trap. When the call finally came, it wasn't from the military. It was from Yael. "Eli," her voice said, low, restrained. Someone found the envelope. It reached the NGO office in Jerusalem. They're verifying. You didn't put your name, but they'll know. He pressed the phone against his ear, eyes darting across the office glass. What will they do? They'll publish. Maybe tomorrow. Maybe sooner. He exhaled, half a sigh, half a laugh. So that's it then. She paused. You could still come forward before they do. He smiled, cold, bitter, invisible. Heroes confess. Liars get found. Then be found clean. The line went dead. That night, he stayed in his office after everyone left. He opened every report he'd ever written, hundreds of files, and scrolled through the names. Columns of casualties, coordinates, codes. He read them the way a priest reads confessions, mechanically, hopelessly, searching for redemption in repetition. Somewhere near midnight, the building lights dimmed automatically. He sat in the glow of the monitor, face half lit, half erased. A line from an old report caught his eye. Enemy combatants neutralized. Civilian presence unconfirmed. The cursor blinked beside it, a small, patient heartbeat. He whispered, Samar Abbas. Confirmed. Then closed the file. At dawn, the news broke. A small outlet, Arabic headline. Leaked Israeli defense documents reveal civilian casualties covered up. No names yet, but the pattern was clear. The metadata unmistakably his. By noon, the larger networks picked it up. The ministry issued a denial within the hour. By 2, a statement promising an internal review. By 3, his access card stopped working. When he arrived at the gate the next morning, security didn't salute. They escorted him inside without speaking. The walk through the halls was slow, funereal. Colleagues turned their eyes away, computers paused mid-scroll.